The truth is a straight line. It can't be left and right at the same time. Usually when people face contradictions, they try to find out which statement is true in the two. But it's pointless, because there is no truth at all. As we go by the idea that all the Bible is the word of one entity, which is God, a God who states in Malachi 3 verse 6 that he never changes. He is the same he was yesterday, today, and will remain the same tomorrow. We should all agree that if that same God has different statements on a specific question or subject, there is a big lie being covered there. Remember, the Bible is God and God is the Bible. This is the only concrete evidence we have for all the claiming of the believers. They say it's all true and has no lies, because God can't be mistaken. In this video, we are going to discover the 10 most insane contradictions in the words of God. Hopefully you will start asking some questions like, if all this is fake, how do we know everything else is not? Without further ado, let's open the Bible and ask some pertinent questions. Contradiction 10. Let's listen to God talking about slavery. Slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. 1 Peter 2, verse 18. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Serve wholeheartedly, as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do, whether they are slave or free. Ephesians 6, verses 5 to 8. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result, but they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. Exodus 21, verses 20-21. So the Lord is 100% okay with people being enslaved. He even addresses it as divine act. Be good to your master as you were to me, even though he beats you. And if he beats you too hard, you still do not die. It's okay because you are his property. It was all clear to me so far. God doesn't give a damn about the fact some of his children are being reduced to object value by his other children. Then he hits me with this, bam, in Egypt. He was talking to Moses. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians. What should we understand from that? Maybe God is one of these modern politicians of our days. Or maybe he has his favorite groups of people. Leave a word for God in the comment section about his funny concern of slaves suffering, please. Let's move on to the contradiction number 9, still in Egypt. What happened in the 5th plague that God dropped on Egypt after he hardened the heart of Pharaoh so he could make a mockery of him? Yeah, you heard it right. The reason why Pharaoh never accepted any of God's demands is because God himself made sure of that. He manipulated Pharaoh. Then the Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, so that I may perform these signs of mine among them. Exodus 10, verse 1. Moses and Aaron performed all these wonders before Pharaoh, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go out of his country. Exodus 11:10. The Lord had said to Moses, Pharaoh will refuse to listen to you so that my wonders may be multiplied in Egypt. Exodus 11, verse 9. It was all manipulation for show-off. So in the 5th plague, God had killed the animal on the Pharaoh's side. You know, when this God starts killing, he doesn't play around. He always leaves a real slaughter behind. After God had killed all these poor animals and continued to drop plagues on Egypt until the last one, Pharaoh finally decided to let go of the Israelites. Once again, God manipulated Pharaoh to run after them. I am not making up anything. Just read that. Then the Lord said to Moses, Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites did this. Exodus 14, verses 1-4. God is playing with the poor man for his so-called glory. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them. Exodus 14, verse 5. First of all, this verse is insane. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, excuse me, how can 2 million slaves flee Egypt without the king knowing that? Do you have an idea what a crowd of 2 million people look like? How can such a mobilization go unknown to the king and be called fleeing? Moreover, what was the length of this line of people? 2 million people in walking with loads and livestock in a narrow road. How long is that line? In 2 days. A part of the crowd would still be in Egypt while the head would be all away. So Pharaoh wouldn't have needed so much effort to catch them because most of the slaves would still be in Egypt. Then there hits the contradiction. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We have let the Israelites go and have lost their services." So he had his chariot made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots along with all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites, who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi-Hahiroth, opposite Baal-Zephon. Exodus 14, verses 5 to 9. Someone please explain to me, where in hell does Pharaoh find these horses? Because as far as we know, God had just killed them all in the 5th plague. Did Pharaoh have them shipped from AliExpress or Alibaba? Let me summarize it for you. First, God killed all the Egyptians' animal. But later on, Pharaoh still had 600 horses to run after the Israelites. Isn't this amusing? I love these Bible stories as they are all true. Contradiction number 8. God said loud and clear to everybody that he is all-knowing. His eyes are in every place watching the evil. That's fine. It must be cool knowing everything. But thank you. I'm happy for you. But later on, Mr. God was having a talk with Abraham, and it went like that. Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." You want to know? The all-knowing God, whose eyes cover every places, doesn't know how bad people are sinning down there. The Lord said, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. If you find, shouldn't you have known already how much there are since the very beginning? What does your omniscience serve for? How convenient. Just like you asked Eve what she had done when you entered the garden. How come you didn't already know they ate the fruit? Were you playing comedy on them? Or you're not even a bit omniscient? Before I go down to contradiction number 7, let me put a word through. The believers claim that God has a plan for everyone. A plan written since the very beginning that will surely happen sooner or later. They believe that everything that happened through the will of God. Let's call it the God's agenda. Then those same believers believe that their prayers are meaningful. Which of these two beliefs is authentic? It can't be both. 1. If God really has agenda, your poor prayer can't have him change his mind. 2. If everything really goes by God's will, it's worthless praying him to change your situation. It's like asking him to change his plan because you don't like it. Cut the crap, please. Or maybe there's no divine plan at all, but when you speak hard enough to the universe, things get manifested in your life. God's plan and prayer are two opposite beliefs. They can't both work. One cancels the other. Now let's move on to contradiction number 7. God, in all his power and blessings, has blessed the union of Abraham and Sarah. For those who might ignore it, Sarah is the sister of Abraham, the daughter of Abraham's father. God, normally as a symbol of order, should have put an end to this siblings' relationship, but he blessed them instead. So God is an incest activist. But one day God woke up. Maybe he was partying last night and got drunk. He called his scribe and went like, if a man marries his sister, the daughter of either his father or his mother, and they have sexual relations, it is a disgrace. They are to be publicly removed from their people. He has dishonored his sister and will be held responsible. Leviticus 20, verse 17. Cursed is anyone who sleeps with his sister, the daughter of his father or the daughter of his mother. Deuteronomy 27, verse 22. The scribe probably went like, but sir, you have recently said to Abraham to keep smashing Sarah until she's pregnant. Abraham and Sarah are siblings. Now you say they are cursed. If you keep changing your words like that, people will think you're out of your mind. Anyways, let's move on to contradiction number 6. In Genesis, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree." Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." Genesis 18, verses 1 to 5. Inside the tent of meeting, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face, as one speaks to a friend. Afterward, Moses would return to the camp, but the young man who assisted him, Joshua son of Nun, would remain behind in the tent of meeting. Exodus 33, verse 11. That's one of the stories that makes me wonder if those gods were not actually aliens. When Abraham saw the Lord and two other men, he ran towards them and bowed down in front of Lord. Sat down with them, talked to them as friends, and even make them snacks. Then they asked to see Sarah. The story is crystal clear, but then I stumble on these verses. No one has ever seen God, but the unique one, who is himself God. He alone can never die, and he lives in light so brilliant that no human can approach him. No human eye has ever seen him, nor ever will. 1 Timothy 6, verse 16. At this point, I am just going to close this book and move on, because this got to be a game. They are playing a trick on us. Maybe the Bible is an IQ test book to detect people with no thinking capabilities. How can a sane person not realize that something is not right with this book? Anyway, I've done my part. I take on me to reveal them to you, then you decide what you do with the information. If you are still watching, I would love it if you could click the subscribe button. A simple finger move for you, but which means the world to me. Contradiction number 5. Jeremiah 31, verse 30. All people will die for their own sins. Those who eat the sour grapes will be the ones whose mouths will pucker. The person who sins is the one who will die. The child will not be punished for the parent's sins, and the parent will not be punished for the child's sins. Righteous people will be rewarded for their own righteous behavior, and wicked people will be punished for their own wickedness. Ezekiel 18, verse 20. But here comes the problem. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God who will not tolerate your affection for any other gods. I lay the sins of the parents upon their children. The entire family is affected, even children in the 3rd and 4th generations of those who reject me. Exodus 20, verse 5. No Ammonite or Moabite or any of their descendants for 10 generations may be admitted to the assembly of the Lord. Deuteronomy 23, verse 3. Honestly, I don't know who these Ammonite or Moabite thingy are, but they're fucked up till the 10th generation. Poor upcoming children. They're gonna carry the burden of their grandparents. Is that two different gods talking or the same one? Oh, sorry. There's only one God. So obviously it's the God who never changes. But why does he keep changing his statements like that? It's really getting out of hands now. Anyway, let's move on to contradiction number 4. Again in Exodus, it is written black on white. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Dedicate to me every firstborn among the Israelites. The first offspring to be born of both humans and animals belongs to me." Exodus 13, verses 1-2. After I read this verse, I was like, maybe he asks the animal to be slaughtered on the altar, and the firstborn to serve him in the church. But wait, you must not hold anything back when you give me offerings from your crops and your wine. You must give me your firstborn sons. You must also give me the firstborn of your cattle, sheep, and goats. But leave the newborn animal with its mother for 7 days. Then give it to me on the 8th day. However, anything specially set apart for the Lord, whether a person, an animal, or family property, must never be sold or bought back. Anything devoted in this way has been set apart as holy, and it belongs to the Lord. No person specially set apart for destruction may be bought back. Such a person must be put to death. Leviticus 27, verse 28 and 29. So no, the firstborn were not for church services. They are to be put to death. Once again, the believers don't have a bit of a problem with, and again, neither do I. But here comes the problem. Do not permit any of your children to be offered as a sacrifice to Molech, for you must not bring shame on the name of your God. I am the Lord. Leviticus 18, verse 21. You must not worship the Lord your God the way the other nations worship their gods, for they perform for their gods every detestable act that the Lord hates. They even burn their sons and daughters as sacrifices to their gods. Deuteronomy 12, verse 31. But Mr. God, that's exactly what you asked them in Exodus. Every person or animal set apart for the Lord must be put to death. What's going on here? They have built pagan shrines to Baal in the valley of Ben Hinnom, and there they sacrifice their sons and daughters to Molech. I have never commanded such a horrible deed. It never even crossed my mind to command such a thing. What an incredible evil, causing Judah to sin so greatly. Jeremiah 32, verse 35. Wait, how many gods are talking now? It never even crossed your mind to command such an horrible deed. But that's exactly what you said to Moses earlier. Fuck it. Let's just move on to the contradiction number 3. At least there we have some good news because it is said, God saved you by his grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it. For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. Ephesians 2, verses 8 to 10. So our salvation is a gift from God. It is written there black on white. Good news, huh? No, brother, cut this smile off your face, for it is written too. For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and will judge all people according to their deeds. Matthew 16, verse 27. Nope, nope, nope. You can't keep on doing me like that. God had just said my salvation is a gift from him. I cannot boast about it. He created us anew in Christ so we can do all the good things he planned for us. Now the Son wants to judge me? What you gonna judge me for? Don't you see it written, that part of the verse? God has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. It was all planned by God long time ago. You can't just speak, and change your words again and again. I don't know how it works in heaven, but down here on earth we are men of our words. Otherwise, our girlfriends will break up with us. Our words are precious. We can't just change them for pleasure. Are you playing with mankind? Is this a game for you? I hope you stop it. Contradiction number 2. When Judas, who had betrayed Jesus, saw that he was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priests picked up the coins and said, it is against the law to put this into the treasury, since it is blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the Field of Blood to this day. Matthew 27:3-8. Poor Judas. He was served as a pawn in the plan of God, and still he ended up hanging himself. I think most PF people don't realize how big the plot was on him. Dude had no choice than to do what he did, because Jesus came down from heaven with everything already planned and settled. It was predestined by God himself that he needed pawn to trigger the salvation plan. Without Judas, there would be no crucifixion. Everyone would have gotten along with Jesus and lived peacefully. But God wanted him hated so he can put the guilt on us. Fortunately, I was not around, so no one can come blame me for that. So Judas threw the coins on the floor and went out hang himself out of guilt. God didn't even bother whispering in his ears. Good job, Juju. Mission accomplished. Now go take a rest. You have saved the plan. Again, here comes the problem. With the payment Judas received for his wickedness, he bought a field. There he fell headlong. His body burst open and all his intestines spilled out. Everyone in Jerusalem heard about this, so they called that field in their language Akeldama, that is, field of blood. Judas bought a field? You guys are audacious. You just said that he threw the money in the temple, but now he bought a field. It was not enough playing him as a pawn, but you're also making up things on him. Goddamn, if you made it until there, you're amazingly curious. It's actually good to know things and interesting things. That's what we do here on Mythos Revealed. I would love to ask you to subscribe as we move on to the contradiction number 1. This one is more than a contradiction. That's pure absurdity. The 7 last words of Jesus on the cross. When I was a child, I was taught that Jesus had said 7 things on the cross before passing away. But when I read the Bible, I realized it was a useless setup. Hear me out. Each gospel in the New Testament tells the full story of Jesus, from the very beginning to the very end. The Gospel of Mark is not episode 2 of the Gospel of Matthew. Neither the Gospel of Luke is the episode 3. Each one of them is a complete full movie, so in order to claim out that Jesus said 7 things on the cross before dying, those 7 words should have been reported in all the Gospels. They should have been found both in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But screw you. According to Matthew, the only thing Jesus said on the cross before he passed away was, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lima sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Matthew 27, verse 46. That's it. End of the story. Those same words were also reported by Mark, in Mark 15, verse 34. So it should end there. Now you are to ask yourself, how did religion come up with the 6 other phrases of Jesus? It's about to be funny. Those 6 other words were reported by Luke and John. Remember, Mark and Matthew were the only men who walked with Jesus. Luke and John were never ever present. They only heard things. How amusing is that? 2 people who were not even present at an event contradicted the 2 men who were present. Each of them claimed that Jesus said something different, and religion came in all this mess, made an addition with all the contradictions, and called them the 7 words of Christ on the cross. Fuck off. Since when the Gospel of Luke was episode 3 of the Gospel of Matthew? If you liked the video, leave me a subscribe to support the hours of researches. See you in the next video. Bye.